Hello. Hello. So I guess hello, whoever is listening and watching. Welcome. This is the very, very, very first Pain Geeks podcast. Uh,
Yay.
Yay! We're not nervous at all, are we, Christine?
No, no, totally normal.
We just do this all the time. Hello. We are the founders of Pain Geeks, and we are very excited to start this podcast and share a little bit about why we love Pain Geeks so much, why we started Pain Geeks, why we are massive Pain Geeks, and what that means, and a little bit of an insight into what we do in our community as well. So it's very nice that you joined us. Very nice to meet you. My name is Laura Rathbone. I am a pain specialized physiotherapist. I've been working with a special interest in chronic pain for almost 15 years now, which doesn't feel like that much now I look back on it. But and I guess you just constantly learning all the time in this field. So you always feel like a rookie, you always feel like a noob. And I currently work in Amsterdam, allied to the pain team at the OVG hospital here in Amsterdam, which I really enjoy. And um, yeah, I guess that's a little bit about me. Christine, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name is Christine. I am a Canadian physiotherapist who lived in the Netherlands for many years, which was how Laura and I met, actually. And I've recently, two and a half years ago, moved to Cyprus. I'm working here now in a general sort of MSK private practice setting.
Hmm.
But I really got interested in pain science, psychologically informed care, probably around 2 years into when I started practicing, which is, no coincidence around the time that I met Laura. Um, I mean, I was interested in it, of course, but I was mostly confused and frustrated. And, Laura helped me sort of put me on the right path in terms of like shaping the way that I could move into that space, with integrity and um, even against kind of all odds, quote unquote, because you have a
Mm.
lot of the pathoanatomical biomedical world sort of pushing back against you all the time.
Oh, that's a great topic.
So yeah, but so yeah, this has been my journey for the last,
Yeah.
8, 9 years. And yeah, definitely a pain geek and still in this job and still liking it. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I do as well. And sometimes we have this conversation, don't we, where we get off the call because as part of Pain Geeks, we have our free community, but then we also have our um, subscription community, Super Geeks, and that's where we do all of our live discussions and talk about what we're reading and really get to know each other.
Hmm.
And we sort of sometimes say afterwards, like, how energized we feel. Like, you come off those calls and you're like, yeah, this is really possible, right? This feels so much
Hmm.
more possible. And I think, even, with all of the courses, all the learning, all the support, all the stuff that I've done over the years to become this pain specialized clinician, to be trusted not only by my patients, but by other clinicians to work with some really complex experiences of pain for people. Like,
Hmm.
it doesn't always feel very possible, you know? And then we come
Yeah.
off these calls and we're like, oh, okay, oh, yes, I think this is possible. I can go back in and do this and keep working. And when I say that, I mean, it's not that it doesn't feel possible for people to live well with pain. It's more like you feel you're battling against a system that sometimes is making it hard for you as a clinician. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I think that, that's also like a great reflection on the process of not only just working clinically, but also trying to stay evidence informed, because I mean, I get that same feeling for the same reasons, but also because, reading and trying to understand the science is also hard on your own. And that's a struggle. And sometimes you think like, oh, why am I bothering to even read this paper right now? And then you go to the discussion and then you're like, oh, yes, okay, I get
That's
it.
why.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, we're going to talk more about this in this session, but hopefully what you've already got is this sense of how we want to hold this podcast space. Like, we don't want this to feel like we are presenting a very polished view of what it is to navigate this space as clinicians. We want to be honest and open about our journey and what it feels like, and hopefully that can help connect us all a little bit more. Yeah. Yeah. And that's it, because we've been running Pain Geeks now for how
5 years,
many?
4 or 5
5 years?
years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's we do still get asked like, why did we start this? We get asked, we get often the comment we get is, oh my God, I'm so glad you started this. And
Mm-hmm.
then the second comment is, how did you come up with this? Or like, why did you come up with this?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we can speak to that a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And
Um,
how did I not know about this?
and how did I not
We
know
get
about this?
that,
Which is why we're
yeah.
doing the podcast, right?
Yeah.
Because we think you should know about this.
Yes.
Yeah, so I guess Pain Geeks has been on a bit of a journey, right? So Pain Geeks, as it looks now, we've been doing for 5 years, right? But I think there was a year
Mm.
before that where I had sort of, I do sort of love this story, and I remember it really well. It was like it was the 1st of January. It was COVID. I was sat in my attic, which sounds like a lot of fun, because I'd had to
Mm-hmm.
convert that into an office to try and work from home with two young kids in a small house. We were doing lots of we were really desperately trying to keep people engaged in the learning experience that is required to be pain informed in your clinical practice. And I was working across a few different groups at that point, and I just thought, you know what? I'm reading all of this stuff, but where is it going? Every day at the time I was reading like prolifically at the day at that time to research things, and I thought I'm just going to put it on my website. So Pain Geeks really started as a very sort of um, rough and ready page on my website that was just recommended reading, I think, or something like that. And I started putting this reading list out, and then people started following and talking about it. And like I started saying on Twitter, oh, I'm reading this, and this is the link. And I don't know, then it just sort of grew. And then all of a sudden I thought, okay, why don't we start talking to the researchers, but not about their research per se, but about the research process a little bit more. And like, how did they get to this? Why did they want to ask this question? Where did it come from? Um, and so I started doing that a little bit, and then it kind of grew. And then I guess there was a point where, and then you and I had also decided that we wanted to work together at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's sort of where, and then these two worlds came together. So the way I think about Pain Geeks really is what it is now.
Mm-hmm.
But there was this sort of little bit beforehand where I was just like sharing the love of reading and also trying to organize my own reading. Because I don't know if you've had this feeling, but like you read an article, but then what do you do with it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, where do you put it? Where does it go? How do you hold on to that bit of knowledge
Mm-hmm.
whilst also moving on to the next thing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Um, yeah, and I mean to go back to also like the origins of Pain Geeks, right? Like have been since you started that website, and then I sort of came on board, about a year later. And I remember actually one of the first discussions I joined was with Gilletta Belton, which was
Oh,
pretty cool. Yeah, which was pretty nice. Um, and she was just, of course, telling her story. And I think I'm not sure exactly what we were talking about, actually, what the theme was or the paper was. I can't remember, but yeah, it was just a nice starting point, I think, to sort of diving into the community space and seeing how it sort of all functioned. You want to
we were
say
talking about
something?
yeah, we were talking about epistemic justice.
Ah, yes, yes, yes. Okay.
And like the justice of hearing somebody's story and how that can be
Yes.
a transformational experience, and how it's not just, listening to someone's story is so much more than just hearing the words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there have been so many iterations of Pain Geeks like since that moment, right? What started as like on the back of a website and just sort of like a reading list
Mhm.
to a small following to a more organized, space, from we've gone from like a single cell organism to a more complex
Blankets
iteration.
within blankets within
Yes,
blankets.
exactly. Where, now we function as like a very community focused space with, regular organized discussions and,
Yeah.
more structured reading and, um, yeah, and essentially what happened is that as it became more complex, we actually slowed down a
Yeah.
lot, so that those readings were not just going in, you know, one eye and out the other, for lack of a better term, but like that we would be able to actually reflect on them and increase, the odds that they would be something we could integrate more into our clinical practice and our clinical reasoning. So yeah, it's been a really interesting journey of how we've moved and created the structure of the community. And there have been some Pain Geeks that have been with us from the beginning and have seen all of those versions
Mhm.
and are really happy with every version, but extremely happy with how it is now because it's just
Mm.
so much more manageable and sustainable now.
And in a way, we probably, like those members and like, I know you and I we both know who we're talking about.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the feedback that we've had from them, like every year we ask our community, what are we doing well? What do we need to improve on? Do you have any
hmm
suggestions? And that sort of lovely direct like link between what our community is saying they need from us, and then we sort of try and figure out how to do that, how to respond to that, how to build that. Yeah, and I think that is really what I'm so grateful that you came on board to this project. And oh, I've got a bit emotional now. But like because that's what you really brought in. And you say here like we slowed down, but I know that slowing me down was not an easy task. And
Yeah. I
you
mean,
were very patient.
we read one paper a month now, and in the beginning it was like four.
It was one paper a week, yeah. Which at the time like felt okay, but I think what I had missed in the early part of the development of this project and this community. So I think I had missed the opportunity to really build and facilitate the skill of reading with people. Um, because that's not just going to make you more able to read the evidence. I'm sorry, Bobby's just barking in the background, but I don't know if you can hear her.
Mm,
But it's not only going to help you read the evidence, but the skill of being able to read the evidence is also the same skill you're going to use when you go into those patient encounters and you're listening to the story and you're thinking critically about what's been said, what you know, what part can you be in this? What's your role in this person's journey? There's a
hmm
lot of translatable and transferable skills there. And I think slowing down was, yeah, it was sort of a psychological journey for me. It was an emotional journey as well for me. And I think we're so glad that you were able to sort of provide that grounding and just be like, let's let people have more time with these. Let's not rush people through. Let's give them more time and space to reflect and hold what's being said in these papers. I think that was exactly right. So now we might
mm,
only read one paper a month, but actually what we're doing is we're reading it so closely that sometimes I get to the end of the month and I'm like, I could probably focus on this paper for another month, you know?
hmm hmm
And
There's always so much in them.
yeah, you remember how rich the information is and how there's a lot that you can draw from one paper.
hmm Yeah, and I think, there is also, of course, like a compounding effect, right? Like every year, every month that you're in Pain Geeks, we we have sort of themes sort of for each quarter, but we repeat these themes and we repeat paper. We don't repeat papers necessarily, but we could now. We've come to the
Mhm.
point where we're starting to think about it because the way we are sort of engaging with the evidence now is so different from the way we were doing it in the beginning that, there
Yeah.
could be a lot of value in going back to some of those, really great papers that we, read in the beginning. And that's true at any point, right? That's also something we've talked about a lot on Pain Geeks that it's, rereading things at different points in your life can have different values for you for multiple different reasons, right? And
Yeah.
that's a great thing to do, and we also
Yeah.
just forget things. That's also very normal, right? And every time, like for example, now we've kind of moved. In the beginning we did a lot of like predictive processing stuff, but it was so new to me back then. Like I remember reading
Mhm.
it, but none of it was really, I was like, okay, this just seems complicated. And now we're kind of getting a little bit more into some of that stuff now with the books we're reading and some of the
Yeah.
papers we're reading. And that stuff that just went in before that I thought was flying away from me, it was actually. And now I'm building on that. And then you see that process, you see that how learning it was working in real time. And
Hmm.
things just build as you repeat them and as you think about them in different ways. And that is learning. And
Yeah.
I'm seeing it happen for me in real time. It's slow, it's a little bit painful, but you know,
Can
it's
totally relate.
it's happening, and that's really exciting, actually,
Yeah.
also.
I really love this because I think that's what we're also seeing like in our community. So in the discussions in each other, in ourselves over time, being evidence informed is a term that just gets thrown around. And
Mm,
it's really easy to understand
mm,
that as meaning you have to read as much articles as possible, right? Or like you have to go to as many courses as possible. Um, but I think if we don't also really have the skill of knowing what we're reading, spending time with it, reflecting on it, integrating it, um, it's hard to really see your own progress. And
hmm.
I think that's what we do really nicely. That's what the discussions and the space, the community space offers. It's this kind of like touchstone. Every month we come in and we share and we join and we have these hard conversations. And the next month you come in and you're like, oh, I actually do understand this a bit more, or we have a bit more ideas about what's being said, and we can relate it more to our practice. And you have this feeling of just growth. And it's no surprise for us, right? So we're both ACT-informed clinicians. That's a process-based approach
Hmm.
to therapy, less
Hmm.
about content, more about process. And I
Hmm.
think we've sort of bit by bit, we've applied that sort of structurally to what we do in Pain Geeks now as well. We're really thinking about the process of being an evidence-informed clinician as opposed to being able to just hold the banner up and put it on your
Yes,
website. What does it
totally.
actually mean? What does it take to be an evidence-informed clinician?
Yes, 100%. Because I was also thinking the same thing. Like, we have structured this community very much around what our values are. And,
Yeah.
this is why, we've had so many iterations, and this is, why we've had so many conversations about like what is the best way to move forward with this and where are sort of our boundaries in terms of an educational platform. Because of course, the easy thing to do is to summarize evidence for people into sound bites or
Hmm.
whatever, right? Because
Hmm.
everybody's busy, and that's fine. Of course, we're all busy, we're tired,
Yeah.
like this stuff is hard to do.
Yeah.
But that's not our values, right? Like we value people being autonomous clinicians, making their own decisions,
Hmm.
working in that space from their own perspectives. And of course, there's lots of self-reflection around that too, whatever that means.
Yeah.
But we want people to read it themselves, right? And not take the interpretation of what somebody else thinks
Yeah.
potentially also about an interpretation about something else, right? So,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
it. I really like that you brought us back to that. And I remember our discussions in our little when we used to work sometimes out of the co-working space in Amsterdam, and obviously used to sit down and be like, well, what is it that we want people to, what do we want our community to move around? What is this
Mm,
core thing? And it has always been, we do not do the reading for you, right? The learning is in the struggle. You've got to read the paper, even if you don't understand everything in it.
hmm
But it is less of a struggle if you know you're going onto a call with like a group of other clinicians who are also thinking, I don't know what is realism? Like, what is this? And
hmm
I remember in the beginning, like the thing I used to struggle with was like, what is like epistemological knowledge? What does this mean?
Yeah.
And the conversations and the frustration. But like, it's only in the process of reading the actual paper can you make any opinion about how you're going to use that information. And like, imagine if I was to read a paper and then give you a summary based on how I think you should use that information.
Mm-hmm.
Your clinic is so different to mine, right? We both work
Mm-hmm.
in two different clinical practice spaces. We're both pain informed. We're both dedicated to evidence informed practice. We're both ACT informed clinicians. But yet we're working in different ways. So my summary of that paper, what I think the paper is able to do, might be very different to what you think it's able to do in your perspective.
Yeah.
And that's all relevant, right? And um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's right. We've had these conversations about should we be more of an educational platform or should we be more of a, do we want to stay at this kind of discussion-based level? And we've always sort of chosen this more community-based approach because there's enough education platforms out there, right? And I am an educator, so I go out and do these lectures and I put the slides together and I create a story. And the way that you do that is very different to the way you
Mm-hmm.
hold a journal club or a critical reading session. Yeah.
Totally.
Like I have to create this beginning, middle, and end. There has to be a feeling of this is the problem, this is how you deal with it, this is what it looks like, so that people get that sense of sort of they're taken through this sort of process of skill acquisition. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but
And
this
like a
this
completeness,
yeah,
you know.
right. That's just not how it's not how it really looks.
No.
And I think there's a truth in both of these things. There's a truth in how we educate people on a thing, and how we facilitate that learning. And then there's also a truth of we're all just clinicians trying to figure out how to do this really hard job. And no matter how polished we want it to be, it's not easy, the job we're doing. There's huge amounts of variability from one person to the next,
Mm-hmm.
even if they've got the same diagnosis. So we're going to have to keep going in open and ready to work with, the situation that the other person has found themselves in.
Yes. And where are the spaces for clinicians to process that, right?
Exactly.
They
Yeah.
are almost non-existent,
But I mean, that's it. We talk about this as well, right? Like even in clinical supervision,
Exactly.
often the focus is on management strategies. How do you manage your time? How do you get your wait list down? How do you get people through the process quicker? Or, you're not meeting your treatment time targets. And that's
Mm-hmm.
management, right? That's not clinical supervision. So if
No.
your clinical supervision is always looking like management, then you are being let down by your clinical supervisor because what they're doing is and I say, and I know I'm very bold and like Christy's
Mm.
eyebrows just went up, but
No, I mean,
like,
I agree with it though. I agree with it though.
it's not
It's
clinical
also,
supervision.
no, no. And even if it's not about management, but it's about, specific patient cases, if your clinical supervisor or whatever is just trying to tell you what to do instead of the thing you did,
Yeah.
that's also not good
Right,
supervision.
because you're in the room with that person. Your job is to integrate what you know into their story, right? Not to tell them what their story is.
Hmm.
Um, and as a clinical supervisor, my job is to trust that you are clinically equipped to do that well and to explore your judgment and your critical thinking and how you did things in this way and what went well, what would you like to explore differently. That's
Hmm.
the job as a clinical supervisor. And to
Yeah.
identify gaps in knowledge and where it might be useful for you to develop in different areas. And I think one of the things we do really well on Pain Geeks is we kind of supervise each other, right? Because we're all at different levels in our clinical practice. And I don't mean that hierarchically, but like experiential. And but everybody has something to add into this conversation. And
Mhm.
I have grown enormously as a clinician from these spaces that we've been holding. Yeah.
Me too, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think one of the things, so when we started painting, I didn't realize I would make so many friends.
Mm. That's
Like I knew
nice.
I would make connections,
Hmm.
but I didn't realize I would make quite so many friends. And, you know, hearing stories of other pain geeks like going out and finding each other in the real world and being
Yeah, this is
like,
always really nice. Yeah.
and like meeting up and being like, oh, where are you from? Oh, I'm from there. Oh, lovely. Yeah, like, maybe we can have a coffee. Oh, yeah, that's great. And like, or when you
Mm.
go to conferences and you're like, it's you in the
Yeah, yeah,
flesh.
yeah. You look so different from the bottom half down.
I
Yeah.
know.
I
Look
had
at
no
you.
idea. Yeah.
Or like when, and I always love it when you meet someone, you're like, wow, you're like 6 foot. I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think isn't that needed, right, as well? Like
Yeah.
to I think I
Yeah.
spent a lot of time in practices over the years feeling like the only one, feeling like I couldn't really talk to my colleagues about my practice or about their practice or about the evidence that we were reading, if we were even reading the same evidence or I, I
Yeah.
think, and that's kind of what I hear from a lot of our colleagues as well, right? That it can just feel really isolating. And there's something about being on a Pain Geeks call that's just so joyful, right? And so
Mm.
open and so I don't feel unsafe in any way. I don't feel like I have to defend my practice or, I feel very
Hmm.
relaxed in that space.
Yeah, definitely. I
Do
can
you?
relate to that as well. Yeah.
Yeah,
And we get that feedback often, right? Like this is the space where I can finally go and just reflect, about my practice in a way, exactly what you said, that I don't feel I have to defend it because there is some sort of baseline understanding of complexity, trying to integrate, like a biopsychosocial model, I mean, we've had also lots of conversations about what that is, but,
yeah,
generally speaking, right? Like if I'm trying to sort of summarize it a little bit, and that, we all have different perspectives and there's no one right way to treat any patient. So
yeah,
let's figure out what our own way is and let's find a space where we can do that. Read the evidence, talk about it, reflect on our own practice,
yeah, yeah. And
grow as clinicians.
yeah, and there's this space to be imperfect, right? Like
Hmm.
none of us are like there's a mutual trust that I think is what I really appreciate. And I guess it's healing quite a lot within me as well, like just navigating this space over the years. This sense of we know that we are all working in towards this pain informed space. And also, none of us are in the clinic room with each other. So there is a sort of mutual trust and an acknowledgement that like it doesn't always go the way you want it to go, or like sometimes you don't know what to do next. And you're reaching out for support, and that's all okay. You know, it's yeah, it's all welcome. I think that also allows us to be vulnerable when it comes to the evidence. And I think reading evidence is quite a vulnerable thing, you know, when you especially if you're in a group, it can feel kind of, I guess, I don't know how to word this really, but I imagine that if you have never been to one of our journal club discussions, you might think, I don't have enough knowledge to add in, or I don't know how to do that, or it might feel kind of overwhelming. And I guess we can't, the only way you'll ever really know is if you join.
Hmm.
But the space that we try to hold is a much more vulnerable space where we're very open and honest about the things we struggle with, the things that we think are helpful, the way we interpret things. It's not like, oh, that's wrong or that's bad, or it's more we're trying to figure out how do we get more out of this paper. And that's quite a vulnerable place, really. I think we're it's quite and now I'm just reflecting on it as I say it out loud. Like it's an enormous amount of trust that we are giving to each other in that space where we're like, I'm gonna get this a bit muddled up maybe, and I'm trusting that you're not gonna judge me for that.
Hmm.
Yeah. Do you have the same feeling when we do these talks that's like you're allowed to struggle with something?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Um, I think that the space is designed for that. And, you know, we have, I mean, I guess over time, as we've sort of structured our reading community a little bit more and the discussions a little bit more, we maybe in the beginning it was a bit more abstract. I think the discussions were a bit more abstract, and sometimes I think that could be a little bit overwhelming. So we've
Hmm.
found a really nice rhythm now where, not every, we like to have a mix, right? Because different things come out of different types of conversations. And
Yeah.
for the journal clubs, especially for like the second discussion, maybe we'll have a
Mm.
little bit more of like a bit of that guided journey, but there's always open space at the end there. So it's like it's a contained thing for people, which I think is also part of what creates the safety, right?
Yeah.
And even let's just say, in some experience where maybe there are people who say kind of some sort of like radical things or whatever, where you're like, ooh, I'm not sure how I feel about that. Um, I don't know. We sort of roll with it, right? Like, because we're not holding a line to a certain type of therapeutic way of being, right? Like, of course, we all have our own biases and that kind of thing,
Hmm.
but like part of, I think, what is nice about us and things we've talked about and part of our values is that we see that there's, many roads lead to Rome, right? Like there are a multitude of ways that people can be helpful. Even
Yeah.
the most what's the word I'm looking for? Like stereotypical bad, quote unquote, way of physiotherapy you could ever think of can still be extremely helpful for people and useful for people.
Yeah.
And that is just part of the landscape of healthcare. So if
Yeah.
people have, pretty differing opinions than we have, that's not necessarily a bad thing. We're going to learn something from each other, that's for sure, first of all, which
Mm.
is great. And we want to create as much space for that to happen as
Hmm.
possible. So
Mm.
taking a radical stance on anything doesn't make any sense in a learning environment.
Yeah, I think that's it. Like we're not like I think that we're trying like communities are made up of individuals, right? That choose to commune in one way, right? In a way. And I think what we're doing is recognizing that, working as a clinician is already especially an international community, which is what we have in Pain Geeks, right? So, you can be on a call and you're talking to people from like different corners of the world who have also been on their own journey, who have also got their own values. Um, and I think what's really lovely about having a strong community is that you can allow conflict and disagreement to, rather than pull you apart, to keep shaping the community. In some ways, it's kind of useful and necessary, right? Because we're not all working in the same clinical space. We're not all from the same background. We're not all from the same philosophical sort of foundations. And that doesn't necessarily have to be a problem. It can be something that helps us keep continuing to grow. And sometimes it's tricky because there are these sort of false ideas of like good physio, bad physio.
Mm.
And I think there's a lot of really hard conversation about that. And I think it came from a good place, and I know I was part of it. Like when I look back on my role on social media sort of 10 years ago, I know I was part of that sort of, that's good and this is good and that's bad. And
I know.
but
Yeah.
like I don't know if that's helped people. I think what happened is people started to feel like ashamed of parts of their practice. And that wasn't the message then. I don't think that was what anybody was trying to get across. It was more like, like all of what you do in your profession, and it's not only physios in Pain Geeks, right? But I can only really speak to physio. But like as a physiotherapist, like I want to be able to choose all parts of my profession if that's in the interests of the person sat in front of me.
Mm.
Um, but we do also want to be thinking carefully about why we are choosing certain things, for who is that being chosen, right? Is it to make us feel
Mm.
better or is it to make the patient feel better?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and what is
Hmm.
the role of this thing that we're choosing in the grand scheme of our treatment pathway? And these are the kind of conversations that I really love on Pain Geeks as well, when we start thinking about like, would it be is it wrong to do this?
Hmm.
Is there a moral conversation about this, or an evidence-based conversation about this? What are we doing? And I think as we get more skilled in philosophy, we get more capable of having those conversations as well. And
Hmm.
I think that's also, I'm just sort of thinking about time as well and bringing us towards a close. But I think that's also what this podcast is about. So, like, we know that the conversations we have in Pain Geeks and in Super Geeks are really important, but not everybody else knows.
Mm.
And,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I feel very confident, in the community that we've created. And that's a bit unlike me because I'm not very confident in a lot of things in my life. But like when it comes to this community, I feel very confident about it. I think we've built a really beautiful, great thing.
Yeah.
And I'm very proud of it. And I'm happy to be a part of it. And, I think that as more people come on board, it's only gonna get better. It's only gonna get
Mhm.
richer, right? And this is how we learn. So, it's really exciting to think about when new people come on board, and just not also just to new people, because that's exciting to meet people who are excited about their job and about their profession, and about the science and reading and learning and
Yeah.
open to that. That's a really exciting thing, but just for the whole and for everybody to benefit from that, right? So every new person is just a gift for everybody else in the community. And that's a really, really cheesy, but like
No, I love
true way,
it.
of thinking about it. So, if this sounds interesting to you, if it's something that you have been thinking about or watching from the outside, maybe curious or just not quite sure or intimidated maybe by how these sessions might feel or might look. We always have the free part of our community where you can kind of dip your toes in, be a part of the chat room. You can join a coffee club, which we do once a month, which is just an open space for the whole community. And it's not about any papers or anything. It's just about community to just sort of check in, and different topics come up every time, and we just kind of talk
Mm.
about it and see how everybody's doing. Um, and then, we have our Super Geeks, of course, which is our paid portion of the platform where you join and, you're reading along with us, joining the discussions, being part of any of the um, conversations with researchers,
Hmm.
and of course, all the recordings and all the recorded content from the last 5 years, which
Yeah.
is pretty,
You,
pretty
you can
massive.
get lost in there if you want.
Yeah, yeah, that's for
Yeah.
sure. And the book club. So we have a
Yeah.
journal club and a book club.
Yeah.
So if you want to sign up for that, you can just go to our website,
Hmm.
www.paingeeks.community,
Hmm.
and you can find all the information there.
Yeah. It is, yeah. I think I also want to add to that because although you covered everything,
Hmm.
the only thing I would like to add is that you know, what we're doing is not is a non-profit organization, right? So
Mm.
every super geek keeps the platform going so that we can help, I don't know, keep the space open and keep supporting people. And so I just think it's also really important to mention that like we wouldn't be able to keep doing this without our subscribers. And some of our subscribers have been with us for several years. And that's allowed us to keep developing and keep making this sort of flexible, responsive space. And I'm also really like grateful for that. Um, because it's not only like when somebody joins, it's a gift in the community, but you're also investing in our community and you're saying, I want to keep this space going. And I think that's really important to mention because it's also our values, right? That's also like everything, like our values is at the heart of how we've built this place.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah.
Definitely. Hmm.
Oh,
Great.
well, let's bring this to an end.
Hmm.
Um, okay.
Thanks.
Now I don't know how
Thanks
to
for
end
listening, everybody.
it.
And maybe we should also just say, like, the next uh, podcasts are going to be mostly about like reflections, right? So we're going to, at the end of every month, reflect on the paper that we've been engaging with and the theme of
Mm,
the quarter, and or the book that we've been reading, so that, more people can see, how we're thinking, what we're reading, and how they can get involved.
perfect. Exactly.
Hmm. Yes.
So we hope to see you there. So anyway, let's say goodbye, Christine.
Goodbye.
Bye.